Good morning. It is 3:30. Welcome back to the office. I'm back at work, clearly. I am all vaxxed up and feeling tip-top. So, not really. So, in my, the last couple of days I had off of work, I've done a lot on this project. I'll quickly show you where I've got to. I mean, you can probably see just down there. Huge amount of progress. However, I'll get into all the technical stuff later. What I briefly want to touch on is in the last video was more of a sort of basically a diatribe into what is metal, right? And that was the concept of this project. And I didn't go too much into what I was building or why I was building it, or essentially what it's going to be when it ends up. I didn't touch on any of that, so I'm going to do that now. But I just want you to remember, if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up in one of the corners. Yeah, basically the concept of metal is something that's outrageously extreme for no other reason than you can, basically. And I'm carrying that across. That is this project. However, I just want to quickly brush on the other influences that have gone into this project. And this is a project that has been sat in the back of my mind for years. Like, absolutely years. Again, I touched on it on that last video, where for all of the times where I get messaged or, someone will put in the comments, oh, I want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Don't stop. Just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Keep your costs low, have a go. If it fails, you've learned something. If it works, great. You would think that the amount of times I've said that to people, that I would actually follow my own advice and do the project that I've had sort of sat in my head for years. But no, self-confidence is, a thing. Anyway, so I finally started buying stuff. And I've got pretty much everything. There's only a few more bits that I'm waiting to come in, but I've pretty much got everything. So I wanted to break down, again, I'll leave all the technical stuff until after, but what I want to do very, very quickly is basically break down the overall concept. So what I've decided to build is a guitar. And again, that's been a project that I've talked about for years. It's something that I've always wanted to do. However, how can we do that and at the same time keeping that concept of metal like outrageously exaggerated for no other reason than we can? And everything on this channel comes back to one thing, and that one thing is this piece of plastic. If it wasn't for this piece of plastic, I probably wouldn't even have a YouTube channel. What this is just an offcut. I had already built one Raspberry Pi when I started this channel, and I think this was my second one. And what it was is I wanted just to build a portable Raspberry Pi, a bit like a DS, like with a flip top lid. So you'd flip it open, you'd have a screen at the top, Raspberry Pi at the bottom, you could plug in USB, it would be Bluetooth, completely portable. And I thought that's really cool, but I also want to build the case. So I went out and bought some Perspex just on Amazon, this looks like 2mm Perspex, 3mm Perspex. Bought it, but I had this concept where I wanted to paint it with blood splatter. And again, let's not beat around the bush. I wasn't inspired by, I wasn't influenced by. What I did was completely rip it off. This is Gary Holt's Flying V. Gary Holt is the guitar player for Exorcist and right up until the end of the band Slayer as well. So Gary Holt has got this Flying V with blood splatter on it. And I saw that, and like I said, not influenced by, not inspired by, out and out ripped it off. Like, unashamedly ripped it off. I was like, that's cool, I'm going to do that. And that's what happened. So what I did was I got an offcut, and I made sure it was clean on both sides. And on the back, I just splattered like red acrylic paint, waited for that to dry, did a white pass so that on the other side, so all the paint is on the back, and on the front it's completely clear, And you can see through it, so you can't scratch it, you can't ding it, you can do whatever you want to it. The idea being that I could put this portable Raspberry Pi in my bag and it wouldn't get scratched, it wouldn't get dinged, the paint would always be on, and and it worked, and that was it. This was the first time I've ever prototyped sort of like a paint job, and I have painted other things in the past, but this is the first time I thought, let's just try it and see what happens. I like the results so much that ever since then, I've made controllers with this paint job. What else did I make? I made, obviously, the Raspberry Pi, loads of stuff, the whole splatter thing. I even made like a purple and white one with the arcade, the little Raspberry Pi arcade thing. So yeah, this has basically become my motif. So cheers, Gary. So this was the main influence. So I wanted to build a guitar and I wanted to incorporate this somehow. But there was also another influence. And again, keeping in the mindset of metal. Like, it's got to be extreme, and for no other reason than you can, and it's cool. In 1973, there was a little movie released. It was, fairly popular at the time. A lot of people talked about it. You've probably heard about it. It was called The Exorcist. Now, I really, really like The Exorcist, the movie. I'm quite big into movies anyway, but that movie is still one of my favourite movies of all time. And when like in my last video, I was talking about what is metal. And I was, pointing out all these things that are ridiculously extreme. The Exorcist is probably one of the most metal movies of all time. Like, when you think about it, 2 Jesuit priests get into an actual fist fight with a demon that's tearing apart a 12-year-old girl from the inside out. How is that not the most metal thing ever? Like, it's insane. Adapted from Peter Blatty's book, directed by the absolute psychopath William Friedkin. Like, if you ever get a chance, look up the making of The Exorcist or read some of the things about the behind the scenes on The Exorcist. It's insane. The man is, quite frankly, dangerous. But anyway, a fantastic movie. And I thought, what a really cool way to incorporate one of my favourite movies with this design that I have now adapted and basically co-opted and made mine. So I sat there and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And what I've done is I've distilled it down into 4 particular scenes. The first scene is where Ellen Bernstein is walking through the loft. And it's really the only jump scare in the movie. She's walking along with a candelabra. And all of a sudden, it not explodes in flames, but the flames shoot out the top. And it's a really effective, scary, shocking moment. So that was the first scene. The second scene was the part where Max von Sydow turns up to the house, and it's the actual box shot. It's the poster shot. So Max von Sydow's in a little silhouette, and he's looking up at the window. The light is coming down through the window, and you've got all the smoke, or the fog, if you want to call it that. So it's got fog in it. So I wanted to incorporate that scene. The third scene that I wanted to incorporate was the scene where Linda Blair, so Regan, the little girl, Linda Blair, the actress, is in the bed, and the 2 priests lift up her like nightdress, and you can see her sort of like midriff, so her belly button and whatnot, and the words "help me" come through the skin. It's almost like they're being pushed out of her skin. It's a really, really effective scene. They probably just did it with like a sheet of latex and some kind of, vacuum form. So it's like vacuuming the latex on top of like a thing. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I really wanted to incorporate that. Like the words "help me" coming from the inside out. I'm like, that's so cool. I'll put that in it as well. And then the fourth and final scene I wanted to incorporate, I mean, it's that scene. Like, it's that one. For no other reason than I had a really, really good idea of what I could do. So I'll break down the technical aspects of it later, but yeah, so those four scenes. There is a fifth scene as well that I really, really like, and hopefully if I have enough time, I'll be able to incorporate that as well. These are the four main scenes. The fifth scene is the scene where Regan breaks out of her restraints and is sat on the bed, and then her head starts slowly turning, like 180 degrees, and Father Merrin is behind her, and you can hear her neck and all the sinew and the tissue cracking. Sounds like something that's under duress, like a wood, like wet wood. It sounds like that cracking, creaking noise as her head is going all the way around, and then it quickly whips around and her head's on the back. If I can, there's something I'd like to do to incorporate that. Anyway, so those are my influences for this project. I was like, I need to somehow find a way to incorporate all of that in while keeping this aesthetic and somehow build it into a functioning guitar. So first things first, here is where I am now. And you're going to look at this and go, oh Christ, what has he done? Right. First things first, let's start with the shape. So why the V? Because Gary Holt has a flying V. Again, we're going back to that first video that I made, the last video that I made. What is metal? Flying Vs are metal. Like, other than maybe Jimmy, every time you see a flying V, chances are it's going to be playing something very, very, very heavy. Like, we're not doing MTV Unplugged on this thing. You know what I mean? So, there's a really, really, really old reference. Hello, kids. So I went for the flying V. Starting from the top, working down. Up the top, no locking tuners, nothing like that. I've got these little Keystone Tuners. I really, really like the little Keystone shape. I didn't really want the round shape. They're nice. They're put in the holes that were pre-drilled. The neck and the body, abysmal quality. Like, abysmal quality. I actually have some footage of me opening the box. There was blood in the box. Anyway, so the holes weren't the right size, so I had to drill out the holes, which I've done before. So I had to drill out the holes, make them a little bit wider to put in these little Keystone Tuners. Again, these were cheap. They're metal. They're not great metal. They're not fantastic quality, but I like them. They look really pretty. I wanted obviously a dark fingerboard. It's never going to be rosewood because you can't get that anymore. It's some kind of wood, I don't know. It's, again, none of it's great quality. And I wanted square inlays, that's all. Like, all I wanted was square inlays, no dot. I hate dot inlays. I'd rather have no inlays, but if I'm going to have anything, I'd rather have the square ones. So, a dark fingerboard with square inlays. Nothing special. However, the neck itself wasn't cut very well, so trying to get it level is a nightmare. And the problem is it wasn't tapered at the end. So, as you can see, it's properly flat, which means that I've had to sink the bridge in quite deep. I might, if it's not comfortable, the action's quite high, but if it's too high, what I might have to do is take the neck off, angle it a little bit more. We're talking like 1 or 2 mil, and then putting it back on. So, moving down to the business end. Now, quite clearly, you can see that the front has been Perspex. So what I've done is I've got a sheet of 2mm thick Perspex. That is the entire front. Like, not a scratch plate. The entire front is 2mm Perspex. And I'll get into why in a second. We have one bridge pickup. Again, we're not playing any clean stuff on this. This is a chug 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 guitar, right? This is not for, again, MTV Unplugged, if you remember that. So we've got one bridge pickup. The bridge pickup that I put in it is a Tone Rider Octane. These are a budget pickup that's British made, budget pickup. They're around about 40 quid. I have tested it, it works, it sounds great. It's a passive pickup, but I have put this sort of like white cover on it. Again, I'll get to why in a minute. So yeah, a Tone Rider TRH3. They sound all right. They're very, for a passive pickup, they do run quite hot. So again, you're not going to get any great clean tones out of it, but for, you know, dirty stuff, it sounds great. I have a silver Tunematic bridge down here, or like a Tunematic bridge. I really like the shape on this one because it's all round, and I spend my entire life with my hand on the bridge, like the fleshy part of my hand on the bridge. Again, chug chug chug. So that's why that's there. It's nice, it's round, you can adjust the intonation from it. Hopefully it works out all right. Again, I've tested it very quickly. It feels pretty good. It did come with a tailpiece, but I didn't want a tailpiece. What I wanted to do was do a through body design. That had some inherent problems. Firstly, with a through body design and a Perspex top, it's going to scratch it, it's going to scuff it and whatnot. So I basically did two things. Firstly, I got some of those little metal, they're actually on the back, these little metal, what are they even called? I forget the name. I'll put the word in here. That's the word I'm looking for. So I've got 12 of these. I've got 6 at the bottom and then 6 on the wood side at the top. On this plastic Perspex top, you'll see these little white grommets. Again, white. You can see where I'm going with this, right? So the white grommets are actually those little plastic beads that little girls make bracelets out of. They're called pony beads. I think you can put them in hair as well. I went into the pound shop, bought literally 160 of them for £1, got the white ones out and made these little grommets, like handmade. I'll get into like the handmade stuff in a minute, but yeah, made these little handmade grommets. This is, because we've only got one pickup, I'm not doing tone, we've just got one volume potentiometer, 500k pot on there. Didn't want any tone, no pickup selector. The reason it's back here, I'll get to in a minute, but because look, all of this cavity is empty, but the volume selector is here. Why? Well, I'll get to that. So again, this potentiometer here, that is actually a knob from a dimmer switch, because guitar knobs don't come in white, but dimmer switches do. White, white, white. You can see where we're going with this. And it all comes out to an old Stratocaster. This is actually off my original Strat, the first guitar I ever bought, which was, I don't know if I've ever had it in a video before, but it's my Spider Strat. It's the one with Spider-Man hand painted on it. This is actually off that because I changed all the hardware to black. So it's a little Strat thing, a little Strat guitar jack, and the cable just literally comes out of that. I didn't want it coming out the front because the front is going to be a bit of a premium. I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. I'll get to why, you know, that's all the functioning guitar part. So like from top to bottom, that's all you need to make a guitar work. All you need is machine heads, you need a pickup, you need a bridge, you need some kind of volume knob, and you need an output, right? That's it. That's a functioning guitar. Everything else, as you can see back here, is kind of weird, and I'll get into that. So first things first, let's start with, what should we start with? So let's start with why, all right? Why Perspex? Well, just like this, if you keep the front clean, like don't put anything on the front, no scratches, nothing on the front, keep it covered, and the underside you paint white, like I said before, you can scratch and scrape and scuff the front as much as you want. It will never, ever, ever, ever chip the paint. So, all of the parts that you can see that are wood, they will be painted white like a traditional guitar paint job. So you put a primer down, then you put white, then you put a clear lacquer over the top. That's how you paint a guitar, no problem. With the front, what I'm going to do is obviously remove this entire front plate, flip it over, and then the underside I'm going to paint white, like bright white. The reason it looks kind of blue is because it's actually got protective film on the front. So once you peel that off, it's clear, like completely clear. So look, you can see under here, it's like blue. It's not actually blue. So the underside of this Perspex will be painted white. So when it's painted white, you won't see that. The pickup will basically just blend into it. The volume knob will also kind of blend into it, and these grommets will also kind of blend into it. The only thing you will see is the bridge and the strings. That's it. So now I've gone over the sort of basic technical what makes a guitar kind of build, which we've kind of got here. I mean, short of the action, everything else, it's kind of done. It is a basic functioning guitar. How do I take this basic functioning guitar and tie it into a movie from 1973 and the guitar player from Exodus and try and make it more metal? So what I want to do is basically focus on those 4 scenes. Now, the first scene is going to be that scene, right? So when I saw Gary Holt's guitar, Gary Holt, the white flying V with a blood splatter on it, that's obviously been my inspiration. I've already said that. But how do you make that more metal? Like, how do you take something like that that's already pretty extreme and do something with it in a way that's like, oof, that's metal? What if, instead of having a blood splattered guitar, what if you could make a guitar that bleeds? Like, what if you, like, the only time that's ever really happened, I mean, maybe Guar do it. I'm not like a super fan of Guar, so maybe they've already done it. I don't know. They've got everything else bleeds in that show. But I've never seen a guitar which, when someone's playing it, just starts bleeding. Like, that's metal. I mean, other than, say, Zakk Wylde, when he was playing, he cut his hand open, it just got blood everywhere. That's like an iconic photograph. So, what if I could build a white flying V that, instead of blood splatter on it, does it differently every time, just starts bleeding? So that's that first scene. That's how I tied that into that first scene. The second scene, the scene with Max von Sydow standing outside the house with all the fog everywhere. What if I could build a guitar that, when I flicked, say, a button down here, what if a small smoke machine inside started pushing smoke out of a vent and a small grill on the bottom? So you flick a switch and smoke starts pouring out. Yeah? Just coming out the bottom. So like a small fog machine. So that's the fog scene, right? Now, the scene with Help Me, like where she's lying on the bed and it says help me. What if I also had another switch, say up here, which when I turned it, like a potentiometer, down here, in this huge cavity that I've made, because the cavity was originally like this big, and I've actually extended it all the way down here, as far as I can go before it cuts through the wood. In this, what if all of this is white, but then when I turn the potentiometer here, the words help me appear, just like on her stomach in the scene. So it will be white, and then it will just start glowing, like help me inside, possibly in red. So that's that scene. So we've got those 3 scenes so far. The last scene is actually going to be, this is the bit I'm actually waiting for the equipment, the bits from eBay and Amazon to turn up, because they're sort of in transit at the minute. The last scene, the candlestick, the candelabra scene. What if I have a small switch at the back of this headstock that when I press it, flame comes out the top. That would be pretty cool, right? Just like Ellen Bernstein with that candelabra. What if I could shoot, say, flash paper out the top and have that, just a small ignition switch on the back? So the idea is that the guitar is completely white. So it's completely unassuming. The only way that you would know that something's up is because of the two switches and the grill down the bottom. That's it. Everything else would be completely white. Even the back plate, which I'll get into when I get into the technical stuff, like the back plate here, white. I mean, this will obviously be black, but that's where you put the 9-volt battery. The power's got to come from somewhere, right? So just on a sort of conceptual level, you've got those four things. So you've got a guitar that when you push the switch down here, just starts bleeding. Just blood everywhere. Coming from the top here, just bleeding all the way down. Then you've got another switch down here, a second switch that when you click it, smoke starts coming out the bottom. A potentiometer up here that when you push it, the words "help me" appear on what is essentially the stomach, like the navel of the machine. And then a switch up the top that when you press it, a small flame or some kind of fiery essence will come out the top. Like, on a functioning guitar, that's pretty metal. The last thing I want to do, which I mentioned it before, like the head spinning around the backwards, that's going to be more of a paint job. So if you remember the PS2 console that I built, where it had that really, really intricate stencil on the front, which is kind of like an anti-stencil because I was painting over the top and then peeling off the parcel tape. So the parcel tape. Yeah, so what I want to do is on the back of the headstock, I want to actually put Regan's face on there. But it's like an anti-stencil. So the whole thing's going to be white. All the neck's going to be white. The back of the headstock's going to be white. And there's going to be a blood splatter. And in the blood splatter itself is the stencil of her face. So it's on the back of the headstock, i.e. her face is on the back of the head, i.e. the head is spun round. That's the idea. If I get time, I'd like to do that. I think we're going to end this video here. What I'm going to do is, with each stage, i.e. the blood, the smoke, the lights under here, the headstock, the paint, I'm going to make each of those a separate video, so I can really delve into the technical aspect of each. But to end this video, I just want to point out, I don't know if I can do any of these. Like, this is just me trying and seeing what happens. That's kind of how I build things. I kind of build them in my head a couple of times through, think about it a little bit more, and then just see what I can do. Maybe I can do this, maybe I can't do this. I have no idea. I have no experience. I have no training. I have nothing. I have basic soldering skills and clearly basic woodworking skills. I'm just gonna have fun finding out. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Yeah, this is a project that's gonna come in many parts, and hopefully when it's done, this guitar will be finished. And I think then we can christen it. I think the name I'm gonna go for is Regan. I think I'm gonna call this guitar Regan. Quite clearly after Linda Blair's character. I think that's gonna be its name. This can be Project Regan. Alright, cool. Peace.